A self-fulfilling prophecy of endless possibility. You're rolling rings across the screen in algebra, the fences that you cannot climb, the sentences.
Now, there are three separate parts to a podcast introduction. The first is the introduction of the hosts. That's John Bernard, Al Schwartz. Now, there, you already know who they are, because they're on every episode of the show. But let's say it anyway. The second part is the introduction of the guest. And in this case, it's Joon Kim. The third part, most important part of any podcast introduction, is the subject, where they tell you what the show is going to be about. Which you also know, because you saw it when you downloaded it. But in this case, it's the fifth Christopher Nolan film, The Prestige.
I really don't want to work it out.
The whole time I was just waiting to see exactly like how much mustard you put on the prestige.
The Prestige.
The prestige. Look, this is I love this movie. I think this is like the most underrated Nolan movie.
Oh,
Nothing the best, but
I'm a big fan.
Yeah. All right, good. We all like it. That's great.
I like it. Yeah. Okay.
It is. I mean, look, it's not my favorite Nolan movie, but I think it's very underrated because I don't think people dislike this movie, but it doesn't get much play. That I think my hot take. We'll get to Inception pretty soon, and maybe when I rewatch it, I'll change my mind. But I think this is the better meta fictional Nolan movie than the Inception, which does it lays it on a little thicker.
For sure. This one is it. What is most notable about this for me is that, well, first off, it's so Nolan. It has all the Nolan stuff in it. It's gigantically Nolan. Everything he does is in this movie. But this is the last time he got to do something that wasn't enormous. This was the last movie he made that didn't cost $100 million or more. This is a sort of the mid-level.
You say he got to he got to write. He got to choose what he did after this, and even this this doesn't feel cheap. It's period stuff. It looks expensive.
I guess we could say that it's the last movie of his that didn't gross over hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right? Yeah, this is the last adult film for adults that is not. I think it's the last R-rated one, isn't it?
I don't think it's R-rated. I think it's PG-13. I think.
Well, shit. Okay.
But I would say that doesn't mean it's not for it's not adult or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it has adults. It's not for kids. I don't I don't see a kid enjoying it that much.
No.
We talked about this in different ways, I guess, but yeah, a lot of Nolan's movies, now I think about them, are PG-13 movies, but they're definitely not for kids.
No.
And it's most pronounced in the Batman context, where that's a character for kids, but he's doing it. But also,
Memento and Insomnia were his only studio R-rated movies, I think.
Yeah, Dunkirk's not for kids. Inception's not for kids. Interstellar's not for kids.
Yeah, I don't know what a killer is. Kids getting anything out of Interstellar for sure.
And I think that he's just sort of able to make these very adult-oriented movies that still get a PG-13 just because he's so sexless. You're never going to see anybody get too horny in a Christopher Nolan movie. And I think for American censors, that keeps you in the PG-13 realm.
Or too cussy.
Yeah. He also doesn't swear too much. Yeah, that's another thing. But this, the Prestige is remarkably adult and also remarkably humorless for a movie about dueling 19th century stage magicians.
Yes, it is. It is extremely humorless and extremely sexless. These are two huge Nolan things, and I think
people are doing it, not on screen.
No, theoretically they're doing it.
They're having kids.
Uh-huh.
Exactly.
But they don't want to get into it. We're not going to we're never going to let you know how exactly the Borden sexual relationship exists. You
don't really want to work it out.
Yeah, it's you don't want to know. You're looking for the answer, but you don't want to know. Is Rebecca Hall an unwitting member of a throuple? Not entirely clear. Or is it only the one?
Well, I think the point of her character is that yes, she is. But does that mean that they're doing the deed different nights?
Yeah. Well, we're not giving you an answer on that. It doesn't matter. It's a mental betrayal.
I'm not saying the movie would be better off
No,
if they
I
had
don't think
made that.
so.
Like, we don't need this to be more Dead Ringers than it is.
I want that. Oh, I want more dead ringers in this. I mean, okay, longer point, but yeah, like avoiding that relationship and his entire life until the last 5 minutes. I like, come on, man, that's the whole fucking movie. I want to know what's going on with this guy.
But the whole thing, it's the turn, it's the final twist at the end, and that's the
know.
whole, like, the impact of that is that, yeah, he lived his entire life, including, like, this, in our perception of his life, this entire movie, without revealing that to us. And that because of that commitment, that obsession, which goes back to what you were saying earlier about how this is like the most Nolan movie ever.
Mm-hmm.
That it is. Oh my God, it's so Nolan-y that it's all about obsession, and there are multiple like 30-something white guys with slick backed hair as protagonists, and you better believe that they are faking their own deaths and or being framed for murder. Like that is all over every Nolan movie.
We got multiple dead wives.
Yeah, multiple dead wives in one movie.
Yeah, we got multiple lines of temporal occurrence happening. There's 4 timelines at any given point that we're cutting back and forth between. It's and we got all the best things.
You got a Michael Caine mentor all over this piece.
Yeah.
At the end, it's sort of about like somebody like getting their kids, like Michael Caine helping the slicked back hair protagonist getting his kids back. Like that's a weird thing that recurs more than once.
It's about reality, Tom.
Yeah, it's about the intersection of art and commerce. It's it's
craft and versus showmanship.
Yeah, all the Nolan obsessions and things and things he always talks about and comes back to, and it's all of them in one movie.
Fractured timelines.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for
parallel editing.
Not entirely necessary in this case. Like, I mean, this movie's probably better off for it.
I think so. But I think it's really well edited and put together. Like the way information is doled out is quite masterful. Even if you do figure out what's going on with Borden, it's still very impressive in the way it's told.
Well, I didn't.
Yeah.
No, I didn't either. I thought it had to, again, and it's so Michael Caine lays it out for you. I thought it had to be more complicated.
He's got a double. I don't know how he does it.
He always has a double. No, it's too simple.
That's exactly what I thought. Like, I thought because this is a movie, it can't be something that simple. But the great thing about that is that it's so simple, but it's not easy. Like it's that commitment is psychotic, and that's like the obsession part about it. That
I mean,
it is absolutely deranged to do what they do, but it's simple.
In a movie that also features a cloning machine, it actually has a magic cloning machine.
Did neither of you notice that Christian Bale had a good friend associate who we never get a close-up of except occasionally, and he's got a lot of beards and glasses and shit on in a movie where the characters frequently put on beards and glasses to disguise their identity. And
right now John is like, how could they not know?
Well, I'll tell you how I didn't know. It's because the first time I saw this movie, like, I don't know when it was, 10, 12 years ago now, it was on HBO, and I turned it on like 20 minutes in. And so I thought that I had just missed the introduction of that character. that I would have understood more of who he was. That was the first time. But now I've seen the whole thing. I'm still a supporter, still a fan.
Well, he does a really hell of a good job of keeping that character off screen. What is his fake name?
Fallon.
Mr. Fallon. Yeah.
But now I think my current brain, especially like my podcaster brain, especially like it would be very striking to me how they were keeping him to the side of the frame and out of focus.
I was just so focused on like it has to be some kind of cloning machine that I completely overlooked everything else because I was fully in Hugh Jackman's character's mind. I think that's what I really love about it. Like I was in his headspace, going, it can't be that simple.
Yeah, and the movie is not that simple because the movie has such bigger, crazier things going on that you're almost waiting for it to top itself, like top its lightning clone machine or whatever, but. It does that in a different way. It's just like, wow, like you thought that Hugh Jackman was off the deep end, but these guys they were born onto the deep end. They
you thought you were born. I was born in the deep end.
but it's I like that it's operating multiple. There's twists going on like in different directions at different times with these different characters, and like that's partly what the non-chronological structure also helps deliver is that I mean, and the metafictional aspect is that it's all about twists and how you deliver twists, and you have to see the information early on in order for the audience to feel like you were playing fair, but also they want to be fooled and they will willing to go along with being fooled.
It is impressive. It is undeniably very impressive. All the things that this pulls off in the margins of where your attention is, where it draws the eye, and then no, it's actually about this thing that they flat out tell you that Michael Caine explains it to you early on. I can see it. I know how he does it. You're not gonna fool me, and you just you don't go with it. You go with Angier because
he's Hugh Jackman. He's
Jackman.
He's the appealing one, like versus versus Christian Bale's asshole.
This I want to get into.
Just that you expect it because it's a movie. You expect it to be more complicated, more clever.
But it's so clever.
You also said the movie had no humor. There is humor. It's when the boy thinks the bird is dead and he's crying. A crying boy is very funny. He killed his brother. He killed his brother.
Oh God! Talk about like rubbing it in your face there.
That's it's like the fact. Like it's one of those where like, oh man, like he completely pulled one over on me, and I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's clearly so obvious.
Yeah.
He made me feel stupid in a smart way.
This is what twist-based movies to me generally do not work, and because we live in a just spoiler-saturated culture now, where it's really hard to go into it. Even just when you go into something, people told you Sixth Sense has a twist ending, but I'm not gonna tell you what it is. But then I go in there looking for it, like it's going to be really obvious to me, like 20 minutes in.
That was my experience, yeah.
Well, I went to see a Sixth Sense opening night as a teenager and didn't know there was a twist ending. Just that it was supposed to be a hot thing, and it blew me away, and that worked great. But once you know there is a twist ending, it's like, okay, now I could. And again, movie brain, like podcast brain, it just is seeped in that now I glom on to like, oh, there's no reason to introduce this 10 minutes into the movie and then ignore it for 30 minutes. Now like that hasn't come back for a while. It must be like for the third act.
You have that what is it? The Harry Lockhart kiss kiss bang bang brain. The voiceover going on in your head. It's like, well, that was weird. Well, I'm sure that's going to come back.
Yeah, I mean, especially with movies, where it's a 2-hour thing, and we're conditioned to look for these things now. Buy a bunch of movies like The Prestige at this point. It's just part of our cultural understanding of twists and how they're done. I mean, Sixth Sense was an unfortunate experience for me because I'd heard there was a big twist going in. This is literally what happened to me, and I was like, "Oh, it would be funny if he was dead." And like, oh shit! Every scene is reinforcing this "he's dead" thing. Oh, that's what it is. Well, shit. Okay, I guess I don't get to experience that then. I don't know.
That's the sword that M. Night fell on because after us like 3 movies, people just expected it because he was the twist guy, right?
Yeah.
And he kept leaning into it, and which doesn't help.
Al, you've been on this show for a while now, and you've often said you don't like the twist ending, the twist ending gimmick. But on almost every case that we come across a twist ending, you've been like, but this is the exception.
Well, we've chosen filmmakers that are really good, so there's that.
That's true, I guess, yeah.
I think also, but I was not swayed by the game. But there's a couple of things here. There's part of it is that there's a couple of twists that get recycled, and so like there's the Sixth Sense Dead All Along twist that worked great once. There's the Fight Club Imaginary Friend twist, and that works fine once, and then after the more I see them, the more I hate them. But the reason why I think the Prestige works, even with Twist Brain, is that it's operating on multiple levels at the same time and throwing twists at you from the Angier angle and the Borden level. And the Angier twist is in the complete opposite direction as the Borden twist.
Yeah.
The Angier twist is that, there is like real magic sci-fi shit going on here. It's not just Penn and Teller bullshit. And that primes you to think that the Borton twist is going to be even like bigger and crazier in that direction, but it's actually smaller and yet crazier. Um, and it's just about that Nolan theme of obsession and how like these people are willing to destroy their lives in commitment to this ideal that really only makes sense to them. I could be describing a Batman movie here. Like,
I mean, yeah, there is definitely Batman energy in this film. There's it feels like that a lot.
People are living double lives.
Yeah,
literally has Batman in it.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, you can see. I don't know. This is a guy who's made in between Batman Begins and Dark Knight here, so I feel like a lot of those themes are kind of just bouncing around in the cabeza, so to speak.
Yeah.
And
theatricality and deception are this.
Exactly.
That's this movie entirely.
and the double life thing, and the no sex ever thing,
and revenge, but not really revenge by just like I'm gonna go shoot that guy. It's I need revenge by destroying what that person stands for.
Yeah, there's a lot of like this person represents this, and that is what I will lash out against. That sort of thing.
Like if I get him, I'm going to get him at the magic show.
Exactly. But I buy that from these guys. Like these are these fucking lunatics.
Yeah, they are.
Spy versus spy. It's a spy versus spy.
But Daffy versus Bugs was what I was thinking.
Yeah,
it's all that stuff, but with no humor.
Well, this is a problem for me. I think that and the sex stuff. I think those are things that this movie desperately needs. This is a premise that demands to be sexy with these sexy people and these relationships and the way that they are weaponizing sex at each other and stuff throughout. And the comedy, man. This movie demands to be black comedy. And, I mean, there are at least 3 different Mr. Show sketches that this explicitly reminds me of. I mean, these are Bob and David characters. Like, just even with the facial hair alone.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
it sounds like you wanted a Paul Verhoeven Prestige.
Oh, my God. I would love a Paul Verhoeven Prestige.
Here, I was at a totally different stage. We were on the Mr. Show thing. I thought you were going to say a Paul F. Tompkins, like Michael Caine character.
Well, wouldn't he?
Doing that in Mr. Show.
He's ideal for it. It's the exact kind of like ornate, stagey kind of joy of having like really ridiculous, over the top dialogue and purple prose and the most hilarious facial hair pieces that you can devise and use to just weaponizing at each other. Oh, that damn Angier! It seems like comedy, and the refusal of it. It's weird to me. It is baffling that they are not going for like leaning into that at all here. And I don't know. I guess he knows better than me. But man, I want the Mr. Show.
Let me ask it to you this way though, because I think that I could see that in either direction. That you could do this either as a more comedic piece or as a piece that could have been a lot sexier. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure you can do both at the same time.
I don't know.
Only Paul Verhoeven.
That's true. Verhoeven refutes my point.
The only thing that I would say you lose from a Verhoeven, even though he did make Total Recall, you don't get that Nolan quality of all these things just like stacking on top of each other, which is a big part of why this movie works for me.
I agree.
Even without the super appealing notion of a sexy, stupid comedic magicians.
I look, the perfect version of this for me, I guess, is a really tall order, maybe. I mean, but this has potential to be like my favorite movie ever. I think if everything lands, and
and it makes perfect sense that your perfect version of this movie is a like Cinemax After Dark softcore version of this, starring Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly as the.
Well, I mean,
chef's kiss, right?
Wasn't there a movie about comedy about magicians several years ago? Jim Carrey, Steve Carell. Was that a magician?
That was Carell. Was Carrey in that? Yes, he was. The Incredible Burt Wonderstone.
That sounds right.
Yeah,
I never saw it.
I did. It's forgettable. It's more like Siegfried and Roy stuff. But
there was also the 2 Now You See Me movies, which I guess are magician heist movies.
They sure are.
Which any movie about stage magicians is kind of a heist movie anyway. You don't need them actually robbing like a bank, right?
Those
Like,
are
this is a
super
heist
dumb.
movie.
Those are like
And those, I'd say those movies tried to aim for something like feeling sexy, but it was kind of just like, no,
okay.
you're not really pulling
The
it off.
Prestige is much better than all of those movies. I mean, look, this is a really good movie. It really is. There's so many good things in this.
Well, I think the spy versus spy aspect is actually what makes this so great. Even the po-faced version of it, but it's also what makes the twist stuff great. Is because it treats the audience like they have intelligence.
Yes.
In a way that, that's the problem with when it's a twist movie where you suss it out 20 minutes in, then for the next hour and a half you feel like the movie's treating you like an idiot. And in this case, it's got these two poles of these characters who are both smart, theatrical illusioneers that are trying to pull one over on the other one and trying to suss out what the other one's doing. That allows you to feel smart. Like, it's really hard to get ahead of this as the audience member, because you might be able to get ahead of one character, but getting ahead of both of them at the same time with how fast things are going is hard.
I did not see the Tesla cloning machine coming. That's for sure. That was pretty cool. Yeah.
See, I saw that coming because I kept going, it has to be a cloning machine. This is the only way it works. And then I was, it's like, oh, wait, there was more?
Well, no, there was two ways it works. Either a cloning machine or a double.
No, it can't be a double. It can't be a double. It's too simple.
Good stuff.
You said there's nothing funny about this. I don't know. For some reason, I thought the shot of them, the twins lining up their fingers to like chop off the other guy's finger was hysterical.
There's unintentionally funny stuff in this, for sure.
I don't know.
There's.
I know. Like even like to go along with this, I guess anything involving finger violence is going to be funny, because I'm thinking about the moment where Hugh Jackman is like he has a beard, he has a fake beard and a top hat on, going like, which not was it, Borden? And he shoots the guy's hand and he's like, oh.
Dang it. Okay, I want a couple more examples of how finger violence is always funny.
I mean, like, it must be like, maybe it's ingrained in me because I saw, was it that Four Rooms, the Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez, like several directors making short films with Tim Roth.
A famously hilarious film, yes.
That movie ends with somebody's finger being chopped off and Tim Roth just walking out of the hotel. I found it funny.
It's not.
I brought up Kiss Kiss Bang Bang earlier. His character.
There's great finger mutilation in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. You're right.
His finger gets eaten by a dog.
And then they hug it out.
And
what a wonderful movie!
It gets cut off. He gets to put it back on, and then it gets cut off again because somebody slams the door on it.
Asked and answered. You nailed this. Like I thought for sure you would struggle to come up with one other example. You have aced the test.
Like, I think something about fingers is funny because you can live without a finger.
It's sort of extreme pain, like,
but it sucks.
Mutilation, but it doesn't like ruin you. It's not like you don't have brain damage from it.
Yeah, it's just like, and I'm afraid they lost their spleen in the accident. It's that kind of thing, yeah.
You got, what is it, Carl Weathers and Happy Gilmore with his wooden hand?
Oh, yes.
I guess that's the whole hand, though, so...
Yeah, that's a whole other Arrested Development thing. Losing a hand is its own thing.
I mean, I tell you, I'm trying to think of, like, finger mutilations that were hilarious, and I'm only coming up with things that were, like, deeply upsetting, which is, like, people breaking fingers in movies. There's nothing I'd less like to watch.
It's funny. Like, if it's a finger, it's funny. If it's a fingernail, it's unbearable.
Oh, yeah. It's
you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a very fine line. These are the kind of lines that I think like stage magicians understand. The audience is willing to go along with this, but not that.
There's more finger mutilation in this film, isn't there? Like with the bird trap explosion thing.
Oh, right. Yeah. And you had a woman just screaming with bloody murder.
Not unfunny.
I guess maybe my sense of humor is just like built upon pain.
I can't believe, like, this. Apparently, we're finding this to be the funniest Nolan movie, which is wild. I mean, granted, they're all pretty humorless, but
it's not, though. It should be. It should be the funniest Nolan film. It has all the makings of a hilarious Nolan film. Yeah, right. I mean,
Like which
I don't
one?
know.
Like is Memento funnier than this? Like,
Dark Knight's the funniest, as the Joker.
yeah, I just say Dark Knight's easily the funniest,
Yeah.
and it almost seems like it's the character is doing that in spite of the director.
Yeah.
Oh yes, Heath's just doing his thing. We'll let that go. Yeah, it's that kind of thing.
Sips tea.
Yeah, it's almost like the movie doesn't find him that funny, except the audience does.
Which
There's-
is probably makes it even funnier. If it played for the laugh, it would not be as funny as it is.
Let's be honest, we none of us, for as much as we might say that Chris Nolan movies are lacking in comedy and sexiness, none of us want to watch a porno or a comedy directed by Chris Nolan.
No. It's not his thing. This film
Speak for yourself.
is uniquely situated to let him kind of do that stuff, though. I mean, the comedy, especially, I think, in this movie should be there. I think if you've got a romantic triangle between Christian Bale, Hugh Jackman, and Scarlett Johansson, you should have some heat there, probably, instead of none. You know, that would be something to aim for.
It's funny that I always forget that Scarlett Johansson is in this movie.
It's like her worst performance.
Yeah, she's not very good. It's not a very good character. It's just kind of there for like a placeholder, right?
I feel like it is an interesting character that Nolan has no interest in. Like, doesn't care about her at all. Like, nobody cares about this Olivia Winscombe. It's, you know, it should be amazing. You could make the whole movie from her point of view. And the movie could
You
give
definitely could.
Yeah. Like,
I think you're totally right about that. I think part of the reason it's easy to remember or forget that she's there is that she leaves the movie so unceremoniously. Like, you kind of like it's hard to even place. Like, where did she stop showing up in the movie? Like, she doesn't die like all the other women.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And she doesn't have a big like kiss off scene or anything for these people who have both wronged her in pretty big ways. She just kind of falls off the face of the movie.
What's funny is that she was the woman that was loved by the most asshole-ish character. She was loved by the asshole Christian Bale.
Yeah.
And she made it out fine. It's the women that were like actually loved that by, you know, seemingly decent men that end up getting, you know.
Well, men that were like, it seemed like sincerely devoted to them.
Right.
Well, I mean,
you can't, because then you're tipping your hand. You can't explain how these people's lives work if you only reveal this major truth about them and the very last 5 minutes of the film. So you kind of can't get into how these relationships work. You just kind of have to be like, well, the good one liked her and the bad one liked her, you know, and it gets reduced to that simplistic.
It's because the movie is so singularly obsessed with the magic. That's why it has to forget about the women.
That is an argument in its favor. That makes sense in a way. God damn.
Don't you understand?
It's actually really good. God.
Yeah, it's not called The Turn. It's called The Prestige. It's a movie. It's all about the final turn, the final bit, you know, twist there, and it makes a case for how that is a particular form of magic, and it requires this insane commitment that, like maybe it won't hold up on repeat viewings when you're trying to see it through Scarlett Johansson's eyes.
Right. Yeah, it's elegant.
And it talks about that directly. Like that's clever once you know it. Like, but once you know the trick, you're no longer interested.
That's another funny scene, and that doesn't involve finger violence. It's when it's that scene that Al just referred to when Rebecca Hall is like, when you know it's not very impressive, and Christian Bale looks legitimately hurt. For some reason, that really tickles me. He's just like, well, you know, it's still really hard.
You were impressed 5 seconds ago. But now you're too smart.
Right.
Like,
he's like, come on, I just told you. Why did I tell you?
Also, you would still be impressed if I hadn't told you. Like, I guess, which is the whole premise of the Prestige. Like, that's why the magician never reveals his tricks.
Okay, right. So let's get into this Bale performance a little bit. Like, this is, I don't like this performance. I think it's okay. I think he's a good actor, of course, but I don't like the take on this. I think.
Do you feel like there's something missing?
In terms of an adaptation,
I think half a characterization is missing. Actually,
you think there should be more difference between the twins?
I mean, since there isn't, I kind of just left with the one Borden who's a dick. Like, dickish Borden is the only Borden we actually seem to know, because we kind of think that's just Borden the whole time through. And I think that it kind of undermines this feud a little bit, in that I'm kind of I don't give a fuck about this guy at all. He's just an asshole. Like, I don't care that he's lower class. I don't really give a shit. He killed his wife in the beginning. He just killed his wife. And then, yeah, of course he's not going to get over that. Like, he's just an asshole. And I don't,
Right.
I don't respect any of that, any of what he's doing. And I don't know if the movie wants me to.
I would say the movie isn't asking
Yeah.
you to. I mean, I think the movie is fairly comfortable with the fact that Borden and Angier are all assholes.
Well, Angier
Across the
has a
board.
good arc, though. Angier is like the guy whose side you're on until you realize, I don't know if I want to be on this guy's side anymore, and that all really works. But Borden is just
Yeah.
like, fuck that guy. Fuck that guy forever from the beginning on. And then when you find out more about him, oh no, he's actually much more of an asshole than I realized.
Mhm.
He's two assholes, in fact. Maybe just one of them's an asshole, and the other one is so weak that it doesn't matter. It's
think
hard to say.
actually that in terms of the movie's rewatchability, one of the things I appreciate, rewatching the movie is seeing when which Borden it is each time, and it's for me, I can easily
I
pretty
agree.
tell that which one is which.
Yeah, because he's
I mean,
doing a sort of a meek face when he's good, Borden.
like he's more, he's obviously like his Rebecca Hall, will actually call it out, like, today you love me, so
Yeah,
there's that.
exactly. It's not hiding that from you on repeat watches.
Mhm.
Like, it's not trying to fool you. That
But Bale is actually doing two different characters, and now it's really about, and then but thing is, for the sake of the reveal and everything, you can't go too into it. It's more visible, once but I feel like
Mhm.
it's definitely there. But I get your point about, like, the asshole Borden is just
He
like,
dominates it. It's dominated by
he's
asshole.
he's the dominant one, obviously.
Mhm.
He's the one that complains about the which not to tie. He's the one that's just the most outwardly smug about stuff, right?
Yeah, and
Sure.
that guy you kind of want to see get his comeuppance,
and he does.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, he
Doesn't
does.
Isn't he
He's
the
the
one
one
who
who
gets
gets
hung?
killed. Yes,
Yep.
and
It would be
good.
terrible if it was the other one.
But it also would be. It wouldn't be inapropos of what this movie's about the obsession with the commitment to the craft is such that it consumes their lives, and like, yeah, it's probably better that it's the good one that actually gets to live, but it would still make maybe even a stronger case about, like, the cost of being a true artist or whatever if the quote unquote good one still had to die for their sins and their art.
Well, yeah,
Right.
I think what I would prefer, I think, is just don't make one such a dick. Like, if they're both more, if they're just kind of a little closer to each other temperamentally.
No, I prefer brothers to clones.
Well,
Like,
yes, but I mean, it doesn't have to have one evil brother. That's not necessary. It doesn't have to be a Jekyll and Hyde thing. They could kind of be more of one mind.
Yeah. I guess I don't find him evil as a thing. He's just such a he's a drunk. He's an asshole. He has no idea how to apologize. Like, he just can't bring himself to do it. Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he sends his nicer brother to do it, but that brother doesn't know which knot was tied that night.
Yeah.
So he can't answer it, which only drives Hugh Jackman more insane about with vengeance on his mind.
Yeah, but he could have just said, "Yeah, I tied whichever knot," or
Right,
they
right.
could have, like, clarified that with his asshole brother. That stuff's almost a little too clever by half for me at that point, where he's like, "Oh, well, the reason he said he didn't know is because he actually didn't know it was the other brother." I'm just like,
Right.
okay, yeah. I mean, look,
maybe does this help at all as an interpretation there? That he asked his brother which knot he tied. He said, "No, I tied the safe one." And
he doesn't know if he trusts him because he's an asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the best it's going to be. But yeah. I mean, I don't know if he's going to say it to Angier. Yeah, like, I'll be honest, I don't know. I don't know that helps anything. But I guess, yeah, that his arc is that he doesn't. That he's the sheepish brother, right?
Yeah. But I think the reason why I don't agree with your assessment here that having them be more alike is better is because I think it makes the point more. Their insane sacrifice of half of their entire lives to do this thing is more pronounced if they are different people, like, coming together in the middle. Versus if they are one, if they are one person in two bodies that are completely in sync throughout all of that, they're not giving up as much.
Well, I mean,
but when they have to really work at being Fallon for the other person, and like that makes their sacrifice that much more insane.
I suppose so, but it makes it less believable too. It makes it it makes it a thing that makes less sense to me. And we have to paint in broad strokes because we're doing all this in 3 minutes at the end. So, you have to do kind of like good brother, bad brother dichotomy. Whereas if they are, like you say, one person sharing two bodies, that's kind of interesting on its own as well. Another thing I kind of would like to hear more about how that works, and I guess such things are done or have been done. Like historically, it's happened a few times that somebody has like conducted their life this way, and again, the movie does not work as it does now if you actually get into that. So I don't know if it's a soluble problem.
I have to think it's more interesting if rather than being one person in two bodies, if they are two people who have decided to share one body, like to the public.
I mean, ultimately, that is what it has to be.
Like that's why you get one brother that goes for Scarlett Johansson and the other brother goes for Rebecca Hall. That's in terms of white women, that's a pretty strong contrast.
Of all, yeah. I mean, if you're gonna just do the Iron Man femme fatales of white women,
oh yeah,
the opposite spectrums.
I forgot about that.
Can I say I really like Rebecca Hall.
Always great.
In I think she's always great. This does not give her the most to play, but I think well cast there to give her a little more depth just by getting a really good actress to do it.
Yeah. She's a great Nolan dead wife.
Yeah,
I mean,
she really is like really good. She's really
better
good.
than Piper Perabo.
Yeah, I mean, she barely gets. Piper Perabo has like no time.
She's really good in this. She's fine.
I think she's solid. She does. She gives a lot of exposition really quickly about his character.
And she has an opportunity, albeit a brief one, but she has an opportunity to have a relationship with, or to express a relationship to both of the dueling magicians.
That's
in the
true.
Brief window there.
She has
that Rebecca Hall does not get.
She feels like she has more chemistry than with both of them as a result.
In terms of go ahead.
And I really buy her and Jackman in a very quick amount of time as a couple. Jackman's kind of just indestructible in that way, like chemistry with anyone, but well, except Scarlett Johansson, I guess. But yeah, like
but he's kind of not supposed to, right? Like that. I mean, that.
Well, she falls in love with him.
Yeah, I know. And she does that. She falls in love with everyone between, scene transitions, as necessary. But the point of that relationship is supposed to be how he ultimately finds it so much more disposable.
Mm-hmm.
Can you remind me of something? This movie has a shot of Hugh Jackman touching his wife's ankle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Am I mixing that up with something from Inception, or do they both have that? In terms of just showing
I thought he kissed her thigh.
Was that what that was? Okay, yeah, that's what I was like. In terms of the sexlessness, like the most that we ever get is basically ankle touching. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's something that is tipping the audience. It's ruining the illusion. It's
right. It's like stop doing that.
You're showing the whole audience. Yeah,
we must not have sex in our art. It ruins the purity of it.
Michael Caine projecting himself as Christopher Nolan. The people on the side of the house can see it.
This is fun. Hugh Jackman though, man, he's good in this. Man, I really do think he's quite awesome in this film.
Playing two roles.
Yes.
You know what's you know how much this movie like completely like makes me feel stupid. I honestly thought they got another actor to play that role because Hugh Jackman was so good, and I didn't notice the subtle prosthetics that he was wearing.
I buy that. I mean, he's really wonderful in this double role here. He's so much fun in this movie, and that's the thing. Like you can really see the way he's playing Angier once that double shows up and does a bunch of like drunken loutishness. In contrast, it really sets up. It really shows you the work he's doing as Angier Prime, so to speak. Just in the contrast with something that doesn't exist in Borden. But it's just not a performance that works for McNeil. But I do like Jackman, and I think he's really good at this particular thing, playing obsessives who destroy themselves in pursuit of something that is bad. This is like him in Prisoners, him in a Reminiscence, I believe, was like this. He's done this a few times.
That's true. That's true.
This sort of tragic, Byronic hero. By which I mean he's an asshole who's handsome,
but
and,
who never comes off like an asshole because he's Hugh Jackman. Like he's very,
what a
very
gift.
sympathetic lead that way.
Yeah, I mean,
That's right. Like,
they got to underline that he's turning into an asshole. Is I don't care about my wife. I care about the trick.
It's like a reshoot line. It's like nobody's buying this, Hugh. we need to underline it for sure. Like,
I was going to ask you guys about that particular line. If you thought that was laying it on too thick.
Yes,
it is pretty. It's pretty thick. It's pretty thick. But I would argue that it was necessary.
You might be right.
Yeah, I think so too.
because it's Hugh Jackman, and
it has to drive Scarlett Johansson from like one extreme to the other in the course of one scene.
Yeah,
that she doesn't even get to play all of it.
A lot of shorthand required for that narrative, the Scarlett Johansson stuff. But yeah, he is.
But it's the heart of the character, though, and the whole conflict of the movie.
Yeah, but that is communicated in other places. I feel like in better ways. That he becomes this sort of Edgar Allan Poe protagonist, consumed by revenge or whatever. But it just this overcorrection. I mean, another thing that works in his favor, I think, sympathetically, is that for the most part, he's mostly done unto rather than the aggressor. Like most of the bad shit that goes down on stage is Bale messing with him, and it starts with Bale killing his wife. So, like, I don't know. It takes a very long time for him.
That's an accident, and then he shoots Bale.
Yeah, and then we're done, right? Then I think that at that
then
point we're basically as even as we're going to get. Yeah.
Well, and then there's like the finger explosion thing, I guess. Yeah.
And then he breaks his legs.
No, I don't know. I think this is a strength of the movie, though. I think that I don't think that there's one of them that is the more hard done by, and I don't come out. I'm not like on team one or the other, even after I've seen this movie multiple times. Like,
you're not supposed to be, I guess. I mean, I think you're supposed to be on Team Borden. I always felt that way. With this, and I'm very much
Team Nice. You mean Team Nice Borden?
Team Nice Borden. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, he's the one that has a daughter to go back to.
Yeah.
Well, got to go back to my kids, Murph.
I mean, I think you're supposed to start on Angier's side, and then he loses you. I mean, I think that's the idea. Is that at some point he hits that Walter White point, and you're just like, oh no, you know what? I'm not on your side anymore. And it might be when he tells you, I don't care about my wife. Or, but there are other points when he could do that. When he buries that guy alive, maybe that's when he loses you.
Yeah, but that's the guy who killed his wife. It's...
Yeah, exactly.
That didn't strike me as hard. The burial alive, which is pretty rough. Now that you mention it.
I wouldn't say I never like kind of lose my sympathy for Jackman's character, but there is a point at which the film does put him at a distance once it shifts over to Borden's perspective, because now Borden is the one chasing, like, how is he doing this? Like
that is a satisfying reversal. That is so
right. The
fun.
movie puts Jackman at a distance for those final, like, the final fourth of the movie.
Yeah, when he shows up at the end and he's like, "I am now the wealthy duke. I faked my death." Then he's clearly the villain of the piece at that point. It feels.
Was it what, you were rich the whole time?
Yeah.
Fake deaths and framed for murder is a big Nolan thing.
And now you're taking a daughter away from a man and letting him die. So like that's the point I would say at which we're like, okay, Hugh Jackman.
Certainly, but I think what you were saying earlier is that you're right. We are the audience, no matter what. And so our sympathy shifts with whoever we're following. When we're in Angier's shoes as the audience trying to figure out the trick of Borden, we're on his side. When it shifts to Borden trying to figure out Angier's trick, well, now he's the audience for that trick. Mm-hmm. And hey, that's where we are.
That's movie making. I mean, that's why we sympathize with whoever gets the screen time most of, who actually, regardless of what they're doing, almost. Yeah,
I think ultimately Angier is probably the less sympathetic character. I mean, I guess it's right. Sure. It's split. So, but he's our point of view character for the majority of the movie. So, of course, I think it makes sense to try and do what Nolan's trying to do here, which is make it so there's not a good guy or a bad guy. It makes sense to have our point of view character be the worst guy, a slightly worse guy.
I mean, it works. I'm on his side. I think this is because I don't like the Bale performance ultimately, but
which it takes me to one of the
Fair
parts
enough.
that I've always been kind of iffy about, like I'm not sure how I feel about, is the final scene between the good Borden and a dying Angier, where all of a sudden, like Angier starts going off about, it's like you never got it, did you, Borden? I mean, Borden, like, it was all about the audience, and I'm going like, what are you what are you bullshitting me? And so, it's a nice, satisfying reversal when Borden is the one who's just goes like, I don't care, bye. And you just have Hugh Jackman going, just croak.
I mean, I like that scene. My take on
No, I
it is
like
that
the
they
scene.
both kind of just like, they like, we've completely both ruined our lives together, didn't we? Well, wasn't it worth it? Wasn't it worth it? And that wasn't really worth it for either of us. That's sort of my take on that scene, and that's what the scene you need at the end of this film, really.
Right. It's Nolan's. It's Nolan having his characters, do thematic exposition.
Yeah, there is a lot of that in this. I think it mostly works.
Yeah, I think it works.
Yeah.
I mean, better than in a lot of cases.
Mhm.
A lot of meta stuff and some other Nolan stuff.
Yeah.
But here, because guys are showmen, and they're
Yeah.
specifically all about tricking the audience,
Mhm.
and they live their life entirely devoted to that principle, and that makes sense. I mean, it makes internal sense to me. But this is the type of like meta stuff that I like, where it's not about, a guy named Chris trying to make a movie in Hollywood in the present day. It's like filtered through something, but it's clearly Nolan's like preoccupations as an artist and what it means to be an artist, and
Yes.
how you live your life for the audience and not for yourself so much.
This movie came out in 2006. When did Aronofsky make Black Swan and Wrestler? I feel like for a few years it felt like we were getting a lot of movies about how you basically have to sacrifice your body and sanity for your art. I mean,
I
artists
definitely saw
love
the wrestler during this. Yeah.
artists. The artists love telling that kind of story, like
Yeah.
in terms of making personal statements. But it felt like for a little bit there was just a good chunk of them at the same time, but that might just be my sense of time being shifted.
It went 2006 for this, 2008 for The Wrestler, and 2010 for Black Swan. Like, so
Nah,
they just come
nice
around on even numbered years.
Yeah, and I would say Aronofsky is he's not exactly like Nolan, but there's a sensibility that I feel like they kind of share. Both kind of intellectual, meta, filmmakers to a certain extent.
The thing is, in Black Swan and The Wrestler, I really do get a much clearer sense of I don't know, a perspective on what is happening. I mean, and it's not even the same in those movies. I feel like The Wrestler's pretty much clearly like, yeah, he chose hell. That's kind of how that movie ends for me. And Black Swan is almost the opposite, even as it's the same ending in some ways, but just thematically the opposite. This one is a little muddier for me. Because I don't know if he views Borden sacrificing half of his lives as a favorable metaphor for the artist's struggle. Like, is he identifying with that in some way? That is unclear to me. I kind of hope not. That's pretty dark if it is, because it seems like I don't know. I don't think he's identifying with Angier, even as Angier is the center of the film in a lot of ways. It seems like the trick, being pulled, the one that's being pulled on the audience is Borden. We see every step of Angier's process. Borden is the kind of thing that we're like, I didn't realize how much was being sacrificed to achieve this effect.
Right. I think in terms of
they're both him. I think though.
I guess so.
I think in terms of broad strokes, like like everybody has that sense of like, unless you put something of yourself like into the art, it's not going to be good art. I feel like, any good filmmaker has a little bit of that in them, and this is just that sensibility, stretched out to whatever, like expanded to ridiculous proportions for the sake of a story, like for the drama.
I don't know. You could say the same thing about Black Swan, right? I mean,
like, was it like it was perfect? Like, my final dance was perfect. She might be bleeding to death, but it's a hell of a show.
Yeah. I don't know, all those examples, like including this one, they all work for me, and I think it's partially because the artists in this case are at least all filtering it through a different art form than the one they're doing. Like,
there's magic, ballet, and pro wrestling.
Right, and
that is interesting. That's a neat pair of movies to to pair with this. Actually, it'd be kind of a cool triple feature.
Like
feature.
You say this like John, you were kind of saying that the Prestige seems more like removed a little bit in some way. And then
sure, yeah, definitely,
yeah. But I don't think that's. I think that's doesn't mean that like the artist is less directly connected to it. I think that's because it's a reflection of Christopher Nolan, who is a different artist, a less visceral artist than Darren Aronofsky. Or,
you make a fine point. That is absolutely true.
Or Darren Aronofsky, I guess.
I mean, he's more about the mind game and the puzzle box of it. Speaking of, like, is this the existence of this movie? Is this just humiliating for J.J. Abrams? Like that this movie exists and does everything he's been trying to say so much better than he ever has.
So wait. What J.J. Abrams have something to say?
No, I think I think J.J. Abrams is totally fine with the fact that he doesn't have anything to say.
Yeah, I guess that's true enough. Yeah, but
I think the Rise of Skywalker proved to me that he does not. He is a shameless fan. He does not. He doesn't feel bad about any of this.
He is
he's cashing those checks and he's living his life, and good for him, I guess.
He's a Angier before his wife dies.
Yeah.
To be dark about it. It's just
Somebody
he's just a great showman.
Somebody just needs to drown J.J. Abrams' wife, and then we could get a really good Star Wars movie out of it.
Oh no!
Excellent thing to put out there. That's great.
Is that the end? Is that the end of this
and that'll be the devil Ryan Johnson playing Borden.
This is a delightful idea. Okay, so should we talk about the Tesla stuff at all? I mean, it's
sure.
Yeah, that's great stuff, right? David Bowie, Andy Serkis, Colorado Springs. That's a wonderful part of this movie. It's so cool. It's
and the hints of the was it the Thomas Edison just little hints of it.
That is hilarious. That is something that is legitimately very funny in this movie. That
Thomas Edison sending his goons.
Yeah, like
we got to get out of here.
That they have dovetailed it into this known actual feud between geniuses, and it's just like, yep, it's like that. Every genius has an arch enemy.
Exactly. every white spy has a black spy.
That's quite good.
Exact science is sometimes not an exact science.
I love the scene of I love Bowie's entrance into the film, walking through the electricity. I love the field of light bulbs. It has nothing to do with anything, but it's so striking.
It's magic.
It's great. It's my.
It has something to do with how they're gonna like transfer energy and matter from one like the teleportation.
Right, that amount of power.
Okay,
like
yeah.
The town is built so that he can do those experiments at night when nobody needs the light.
Yeah,
but it's also that it's wireless and they're actually like things are moving. Like the teleportation thing is moving energy over here. So. I don't know.
You're right.
It doesn't matter that much. It's a magic lightning clone device. Like we're going to go with it or we're not. But I mean, Nolan's trying to give us a little scrap of something there to go on.
But it still requires specific calculations. Like he still tries to make it sound scientific.
Oh yeah. Do you guys have a sense that if Nolan were going to do like George Lucas style, remastered versions of these movies, that he would like add 15 minutes to this movie trying to make the Tesla sci-fi stuff sound more plausible?
No, I don't think he's that kind of filmmaker.
He doesn't care about how the dream machines work in Inception or anything like that.
Yeah. I was like, as far as I'm aware, he's one of those like the film is the film I made. I'm moving on to the next one kind of guy. I'm not aware of any like anything he's like changed for his movies.
No, I wasn't saying like, do you think he wants to do this? I was saying if he was going to do it, like when he looks back on this at all, like I'm not saying he really actually wants to do it, but he looks back on this. Do you think he views that as the weak part of the film? Like, I could have over-explained that a little more.
So like lean into the thing that people sometimes complain about his movies. No, I mean I've always been fine with it.
No, I don't want to know more, honestly. I like that it's mysterious and maybe even, I don't know, seems almost supernatural.
Almost magic.
And it's, that it sort of blurs the line. Like, I don't know how I came up with this thing. I'd recommend getting rid of it. It might be evil. I love all that.
The Inception Dream Machine that you brought up is a good comparison because that is basically it's magic. It's like let's just press this button. Psst, okay, we're sleeping.
Yeah. And I love that it gets very Black Mirror. Although I do say, I'm struggling with this. Like, wouldn't a clone of Angier solve all of Angier's problems? Like, wouldn't just having a second Angier mean he could do every single thing he wanted to do? I mean, it could be like a multiplicity kind of situation for him.
In this case, I think it runs into the problem that we talked about when it comes to like you and Al's disagreement over should Borden have been just very similar people living one life or very two different people living one life. All of a sudden, this man that never had a brother, all of a sudden having a clone of himself. Like, I've seen enough Black Mirror-ish kind of stories where like that never ends well. I feel like
but
Borden knows that. It's like I got to get rid of it each time.
Well, I kind of wish.
I'm not sure this will be a persuasive argument for you, John, but you're right. It's not going to end well, June, but it also doesn't start well within this movie. Like his knee-jerk reaction was to grab the gun and shoot the other guy.
I must kill my double.
I mean,
once that happens, you can't be like, all right, I'm going to clone another guy and hope that he's cool with it.
I mean, it wasn't even knee-jerk because he had a gun ready.
Yeah, he was like, I'm definitely going to do this, and I'm going to set it up beforehand, and it's going to be me here, this version of me, that does it.
And whichever one is closer to the gun is the victor.
Yeah. I mean, now if this was a thing, like I was trying to like work this out, like maybe it's like that's a level, a place he will just refuses to go, and that is what, what Borden has that he doesn't, like that commitment, that he... but it doesn't seem to get the sense of that. It just seems like it would be an abomination. I don't believe this guy cares about abomination. Like, so clearly. Like, why don't you just double yourself to cheat? Like, do it exactly.
To be clear, at that point, he doesn't know that that's how Borden's doing it.
Yeah.
So I think if he had known at that point, he might have been like, oh, yeah, I can make a double and then I can beat him at his own game. But he thinks Borden is using this machine to do his trick.
That's right.
That's still at that point.
That's right,
and he's mad.
But
also, he's just a paranoid, not very
obsessive.
nice.
He's obsessive now.
Maybe
he wouldn't even need the machine again if there's two of them. It would be the simplest. I know.
No, but he's okay. But maybe
I get it. Yeah.
He knows himself well enough to know that I can't trust a copy of myself running around.
Mm-hmm.
That for the same reason, like he couldn't trust his double earlier in the movie.
But you could trust yourself more than that drunk guy.
That's part of what the drunk guy, lookalike does earlier, is that it seeds the idea that once somebody else knows the trick, they have the leverage over me, and I can't allow that to ever happen. That's right. The magician can never reveal his tricks, not even in this case to himself.
I mean, this Angier would definitely try to fuck himself over in some way or another.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
At the same time, I mean, I would think that just trying that out for a little while beats this like nightly suicide thing he's doing instead. Like it's got to be a better option than I might die tonight for the sake of this trick, and we're just going to keep doing this forever and ever. And eventually I'm going to die doing this inevitably, and in fact I will every night.
There's also the part of it where of him it's always yes, it's crazy, and that they see at the very beginning of the movie that after his wife drowned, he was like putting his face in the sink to like that part of him is still feeling, for as much as he like moved past that and like he's obsessed with revenge, but not really. It becomes about rivalry more than revenge. He's still like guilt ridden by that, and part of him is like, I mean, I probably deserve to drown in a box like she did.
Yeah. And it's got that killer Michael Caine line, one of the best in the movie. Like, I lied about it. What that sailor said. He said it was agony.
We burnt the force down. Doesn't this discussion about the way the machine works that leads into like, because John, the source material, the novel.
Me and you have read this. We've read the novel, and I wanted to talk about this. It's different.
Very different. Like to the point where there's a whole framing device for the magician story that is completely not in this movie at all.
Yeah, modern day.
My recollection of the novel is, fuzzy. I think you know it way better than I do, but I like the rules for how the machine operated were very different. Like it was a lot more complicated.
it's a very different book, and I don't know it that well. It's been about maybe a decade since I read this book. But I mean, I remember the broad strokes and the big differences, you know, and the ending is very different. I mean, and yeah, we've been talking about this like this was an entirely a Nolan brainchild thing, but no, this is adaptation. It's kind of interesting in the ways he changed it, you know. I personally kind of like the end of the book a little better. It's a really good ending, I think. But I think you could make an argument for either side of that.
But it does seem like he bent it so completely to his own purposes.
Very
I
much.
think it kind of makes
Very
sense for us to talk about it as just a Nolan product.
Yeah, it does.
Specifically in, you know, but I mean, the book is about, you know, what the cost of art and obsession and what it is, you know, what it costs you to create greatness, you know, and how far you're willing to go. And it, you know, it's taken to a fairly big extreme in the book, you know, like maybe more so. If I recall correctly, the way it goes in the book is there's no double blind, you know, framing Borden for murder plot.
No, I don't think so.
There are various changes.
That's the Nolan touch.
Yeah,
he loves a good framed you for murder plot. It's in Following. It's in Memento.
Mm-hmm. But Borden like is you know, it's similar thing where he's like, you figured out how are you doing this, and he goes underneath the stage where there's the blind stagehands, and he fucks with the machine, the cloning machine, and it creates like two ghost versions of well, first off, you're not killing yourself by using the machine. It creates like an exact duplicate of you that is absent of life. It's just like a soulless kind of like they call it raw materials, and it's like just like a mannequin store version of Angier, which maybe has no soul in it. Yeah, it's just dead, you know, ghost weight or something. I think it doesn't decay, and they just like stack them up in the closet. It's creepy.
And the novel ends with like a very old and like frail, like Emperor Palpatine-ish Angier transposing himself back into one of those bodies so that he could rest in a grave or something like that. It's like it was a lot more convoluted, is how I remember.
Yeah, he's like an immortal ghost. It's much more explicitly Black Mirror shit. And
it eventually builds up to the present day where their descendants, like Angier and Borden's descendants, like realize they have this, you know, shared connection about their magician grandfathers.
I think it's kind of a good book, man. I enjoyed the book as well. I mean, it's in the shadow of the film for sure. I mean, you read the book and you're just kind of imagining Hugh Jackman.
Going only off your description of it, I like Nolan's version of the ending better.
Yeah, I mean,
for a film, it's absolutely just like neater, tidier, more Nolan. The book is its own beast to me. Like all the material for the magician stuff is there, but it's completely different contextual like story because of the framing device and everything.
I mean, it is kind of like there's like Jaws is based on a book, but you know, who fucking cares? You know, it's that sort of thing for sure. But it is a good book. Just, you know, I would say that
I think like it was well received. I think pretty sure it was well received. I assume that's how Nolan found it, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, Christopher Nolan made a movie out of it. Did pretty well for itself. Yeah. I don't know.
He's kind of done with adaptation from here on out. I mean, Batman aside,
right?
Yeah. Original stuff.
Which maybe that's a pretty big thing to put aside.
Interstellar was not his original script initially. That was a Spielberg project. There's that. And then, you know, they rewrote it to his taste, I think.
We'll get to that one when we get to it.
Right.
We'll have a lot to say about that when we get to it.
All right.
But this one, I like it. It's very high on my list of Nolan's, not least because it is very, 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 very Nolan-y.
It is that. It's very watchable.
It's hilarious.
I wish it was hilarious. I mean, you know, I've been complaining most of this episode, I think, but it's really good. It's a really good movie. You know, it's very effective. It's the kind of like on the cusp of being one of my favorite things ever. I feel like, and that it doesn't quite hit that level is frustrating to me. It's one of those situations for me, you know, where you know, and I'm not even sure I could define. I mean, I've tried kind of during this what it is that I want it to be, but I don't know. I feel like there's something missing from this that keeps me kind of at arm's distance, which, you know, is not an un-Nolan like place to be.
No, definitely not.
I think when it comes to movies that you're gonna watch over and over again, like humor goes a long way to once the novelty is worn off, if you know the basic contours of the story and how things are going to shake out. Humor goes a long way, and this is both convoluted and humorless in a way that I think that is kind of bad for revisiting or for rewatchability. And for all that, it's a good example of like how good a movie can be without that level of rewatchability.
I mean, you say that, but it is a pretty rewatchable film at the same time. No one I don't necessarily seek out too often. But every time I do rewatch it, which has been a handful of times for sure, probably 4 or 5 times I've seen this, it's always, it's always good. It's always rewarding. You always notice more stuff. It is good to rewatch, even if it doesn't.
It handles that twistiness so well because it's got multiple layers of twistiness going on that are really hard to track the first time through. But yeah, when you can notice nuances on rewatches, and even multiple ones because there's so much going on, so many layers of deception throughout this. And some of it seems really obvious once you know what the twist is. And yeah, a lot, like every line Michael Caine says, you're like, oh my God, he's throwing that at me with a sledgehammer. But it's hard. There's no way you would have like just tracked all of that the first time through. Like, oh, well, obviously what the movie's telling me is that on this side it's clones and on this side it's twins. Like,
right. And even just the way thematically everything is playing out, like the stuff about, what it costs to create art, you're not picking that up right away. I mean, most Nolan films kind of reward multiple viewings in this way. And I think we're really getting into his ambitious stuff now. This is kind of where the movies really, I think, start to be working on several different planes at once, even starting with the Batmans now. Even the Batmans are kind of going to start branching out into saying something, and having thematic underpinnings. War on Terror stuff coming up next in Dark Knight. So, nice. It's all there, Now he's really, really getting to stretch his legs and be the Christopher Nolan that I think we all kind of understand him to be at this point. It really gets going right about here.
Yeah, he's starting to feel himself.
Yeah.
This is
sexually, but not sexually.
No.
I mean.
Oh no, of course not. Structurally, only structurally. That's
the people on the sides can see it. It's funny that we've talked all this time. We did, and what never came up is the other magician movie of 2006 that year.
Oh right,
because this was rewatchable. This one was not. The Illusionist was not.
No. I remember at the time thinking that those were both pretty good. I don't know which one I liked more. I liked The Prestige more. It turns out.
Like that year, I was definitely Prestige all the way. I did not like Illusionist.
Yeah, I think I was.
And I can't remember why. I honestly can't remember why. It just was not a very exceptional movie to me when I watched it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so weird to me. Like, I never saw The Illusionist, but it's so weird to me that this happens from time to time, where in Hollywood there are dueling movies about with the same premise, and you kind of understand it when it's asteroid ending life on Earth movies or volcano movies,
or Bugs Life, or
it's. It's going to be the Spider-Man multiverse or the Flash multiverse that gets there first or whatever. But for whatever reason in 2006, like 19th century stage magician rivalry movies,
which
the thing that people are racing to get onto screens,
which on a meta level works out great for the Prestige because, one is the I guess.
Which one's the Borden and which one's the Angier?
Yeah. I would say, Christian, I would say Nolan's is the Borden.
I don't know who won the Prestige. Should we decide this right now? Like,
Borden
let's end by saying this.
Borden wins the Prestige.
Oh, I guess the good half of Borden wins.
Yeah,
the good half of Borden wins. Yeah. And gets to see his daughter again because whoever wins the favor of Michael Caine wins the movie, and that Borden won.
That is the Nolan law. You're right.
I declare you the winner of the Prestige.
All right, fine. John, as Michael Caine, declare the winner of this podcast.
The clear winner is June. Congratulations. Here's your daughter.
Oh, God damn it. He gets to raise my daughter.
Fuck. It can't be that simple.
God damn it. I thought I had the inside track on this one.
How does he not know?
Good stuff. All right. See y'all next time for The Dark Knight.
Good night.
Good night.
A self-fulfilling